Hello, everybody, and welcome to our next series here. We're going to be doing this here, building yourself a model miniature train. Um, we're going to start off with the train body here. You already have all your measurements that you need. So let's jump right into Autodesk Inventor. I already opened it up here to save some time. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and pop this open for you here. There we go. And I'm going to open up a new part. And this part here is a pretty simple one. So it's not going to take too long. Alrighty, so let's see. Is there anything special about this? Not really. There is one side note. We are going to want to fill out everything when we're all done, so we don't want to forget about that. So that's one last step. Hopefully I don't forget about here as I go through. Okay, we're finally loaded. All right, just like on all of our previous lessons here, we're always going to start with a new 2D sketch and start on the XY plane and grab a 2-point rectangle and start on the origin. Click once, drag up in the positive X, positive Y direction, and we're going to set the values for our initial thing that we're going to make right here. I'm going to start off in the front of the train here, and I'm going to start off with this rectangular bottom part, and that is going to have to be 2 tab 0.875, right? Yep. Good to go. Hit the home key so I can see everything now. All right, so let's see what's next here. All right, so we've got this, and we're going to grab a circle now. And what I want to do is I want to make sure the circle is lined up at the center point, and you can see it turns green for the center point, but don't actually start it on the center because it's going to be locked to that center point. So start it up above it a little bit. It's actually going to be quite a bit above that. Now, as we start dragging a circle out, notice that it gives us the diameter. At least on my computer here, it's giving me a diameter. All right, and what we have here on our sheet is a radius. So if the radius is 0.75 inches, the diameter is going to be twice that. So there's two ways to do that. One, simple math tells us it's 1.5, or I can say 0.75 times 2. And I'm just using the number pad on my keyboard, and that little asterisk is for multiplication. So you can do multiplication and division right here on Inventor, right in our, hit home to see everything, right in our dimensioning view. And then all I have to do, because it's already lined up with the center, is click here in the center to the center point and find out that distance there. And that distance there, all right, we know that it happens to be 1.375 from the bottom. Down. So 1.375 from the bottom. But we have to also subtract, all right, that 0.875. Okay. And the reason we do that is because the overall needs to be a total of, from here to the center point, of 1.375. Now, you could also just dimension from here to the bottom and get the same thing. I just wanted to show you that you could do math as well right here in Inventor. All right, we could trim everything up, but since we're just extruding everything straight out, we should be good to go. All right, so this is the start of our shape here. I'm going to hit the home key so I can see. And I'm just going to go extrude my profile. And I want that circle. And I also want this thing. Now, how far do I want to extrude it? That's really the question. And again, the overall of this entire train itself, all right, is 5.5 inches. However, the little, I guess, the passenger compartment here of this train, we'll call it, is 1.75 inches. So I'll go minus 1.75. And so that way I don't even do any math. I'll just let the computer do the math for me. It's just easier that way. So we know that it's exactly what we want. Let's see what's next in here. We have, let's do this little back compartment while we're at it. So I'll just start this little back compartment here by right-clicking and adding a new sketch. I'll hit the home key so I can see here. All right, and now we need to start somewhere. We need a point to start from. So I'm going to grab this point here and make sure I start. Oh, there's the center point, and there's those little lines telling me I'm at the center point. And I have a point somewhere about there in the center. You can barely see it because it turns green here. There it is. You can see it's barely changed color. And I want to dimension this distance here. And that distance here it's showing is 0.375. And that's how far up it is. I don't have to mention how far over because I already constrained it by figuring out where the center point of this was, and I saw those little trailing dots to tell me that I am already in the center. If you're not sure if that's what happened for you, you can always go back and dimension this from here to the edge, and that should be 1, and it is 1 because I've already made sure of that ahead of time. So it's 1. Again, that's just an extra step that you can do. The next thing that we know is that we have an overall radius on the top. So the way to do that is I'm going to grab a circle. I'm going to start this circle here, and I'm going to click and drag. And the radius of that circle, all right, that we need is 2.35. So that means, remember here, I'm measuring the diameter. So I need 2.35 times 2, right? Radius times 2 is diameter. Hit enter. Oh, okay. So, and just this part right here is going to be the that cabin area. And what I can do, I can kind of cheat here and just grab this rectangle tool and go over here until I connect and I get tangents all the way around. So I have a tangent point there, one in the opposite corner, and it's follows this edge here. So you can kind of see what this looks like. All right. Next, you're definitely going to have to trim this part of the circle off. And now I have what's left over is the perfect geometry that I need to extrude. So I need to extrude these two pieces to get that little cabin, and that little cabin is 1.75. Okay, and so 1.75. That's pretty good, pretty easy, convenient. Since we're working on the back here, let's go back and add a new sketch here. I'm going to hit the home key. All right, and we need to put a circle or circular hole. And when I go up here and I touch, okay, I'm not clicking, I'm just touching. You can see a little black dot up here down here. So remember, that was the center point of that big, large circle. That also has to be the center point of where we're going to put that hitch peg. So if I click on right on that same point, I don't have to worry about dimensioning where it is because I just found it through geometry. All right, and that has a diameter of 1/4 of an inch. All right, and it is extruded in or cut in 1/2 of an inch. All right, so here we go, 0.5, and cut. And you can see it automatically selects that geometry for me, even though this annoying window is in the way. All right, so let's see what we have here. Make sure it's pointed in the right direction. There we go. All right, so there's the back. Now we also have this little circle cut out in the side, so let's take care of that while we're back here. So I'm going to go to New Sketch. Oopsies. I think I've made a mistake. So it's okay if you make a mistake, delete. I want a new sketch. There we go. Hit the home key. And we know that somewhere in here we're going to have a circle and then some tangent points. So we need to figure out where that circle and those tangent points are. So let's go in here and just make a circle. That circle that we need has a radius of 0.5, which means it has a diameter of 1. Okay, and then we need to take and dimension the center point of this circle and this edge. All right, and we are given that measurement, and the center point of that circle and that edge is 1/4 of an inch, or 0.25. Okay, and then we also need to know how far it is up from the bottom, okay, which is 1.75 inches, or 1 3/4 of an inch. So 1.75 inches. All right. Now we have the position of that circle. We're almost done, actually. All we really have to do is come up here, grab our line, and do you see how it automatically starts to line up at the center of that circle? Center of that circle, make sure it's touching the edge, and drag a straight line directly over. Notice it's at 180 degrees. That just means it's flat. That's exactly what we want. And again, over here, make sure it all lines up. Make sure it's flat. And here we go. There we go. Should be flat. And then we can trim some of this stuff out here. Trim, trim. And that's all you really have to trim. All right, and if you want, we can take this point and connect to that circle, and we could take this point and connect to that circle, or we could just connect this whole thing down this edge and get rid of the rest of this little half circle there. That part's up to you, how you want to handle that. Right now, I just have a very awkward shape that I'm going to cut out, which is fine, because I'm just going to extrude it anyway. Just whatever way is faster, you know, both of those pieces, it doesn't really matter. And I definitely want to cut, and I would just want to cut it all the way through to next. And there's that perfect geometry that we want. All right. Next, while we're on the side, I'm going to cheat a little bit on the side. It actually has 4 holes here, but what I'm going to do is, because I'm a little bit lazy and they're supposed to be, the holes aren't supposed to go all the way through, so you can just repeat this process twice, once for this side, once to the other side, and just set this to a depth versus the holes going all the way through for the axles. But since I am going to be a little bit lazy with this, I'm just going to click 2 points where I think the axles go. And again, you can just barely see them. I can see them on my screen, but I don't know how well you can see them. And I'm just going to dimension where they need to be. So this needs to be so far from the bottom. Okay, make sure. There we go. All right, and how far up? That's only a half of an inch, so 0.5 up from the bottom. And you can just see when I get close to it right there. There it is, a half an inch from the bottom. And dimension this from the edge is 1 inch in from the edge. 1 inch in from the edge. And similarly, this one here is 1 inch in from the edge. Let's see. There we go. 1 inch in from the edge. And what we can do is we can actually go ahead and constrain these. And there we go. What I did is I just made sure that they were on the same plane here. By just using this little constraint right here called the horizontal constraint, it puts them on the same horizontal axis. Similarly, I could have just dimensioned it just like I did this one from the bottom. Just, different ways to do it. That's all. So anyway, now that I have those points, I could replicate these, and I could actually share this sketch with the other side if I really wanted to. But I don't even need to do that because I'm just going to make these holes go all the way through. All right, you can do the same process for the other side if you don't want it through all. But I'm going to make mine through all instead of to a depth. And I want to thread them, and they should be 1/4 inch 20. And in Autodesk Inventor, the default thread count is 1/4 inch 20 anyway. So when you select thread, you get ANSI. The size is 1/4 inch, and you get 1/4 inch 20 UNC, which is exactly what we want. Now, if you only wanted this to go down halfway, not through the whole thing, then you would change that. So I'm just going to set mine, termination is going to be through all. And now you get a threaded hole all the way through, and you can see it on both sides. Or you should be able to see it on both sides. Let's see. Let's see. Why did you not go through? Oh, I changed it. I changed it to a distance. I didn't give it a distance. Yeah, through all. All right, or you can select full depth. Same thing. All right, there you go. So that'll kind of help you out too. And click OK. All right, that'll save you a step, but now the hole goes all the way through. It's not a real big difference, but if depending on how you want to complete the project, if you want to have that little bit of space in there, you don't want it to go all the way through. Even if I was constructing this in my shop and actually building it, I would just drill the hole all the way through. It's just easier. And plus, you can just use one axle, but that's all right if you wanted to. But it's threaded, so it's meant for like bolts, but that's okay. Next thing we're going to do is make a little smokestack. So I want it offset from a plane and tangent to a surface. All right, so tangent to a surface and parallel to a plane. I want it tangent to that surface and parallel to that plane. So I just touch that, and then I touch this. All right. And then I can grab my 2D sketch, and I can plunk down a 2D sketch right there. And I know I'm going to have a circle. And again, since I'm centered on an axis, I already know that I can just be kind of centered on this axis without having to measure that again. And the diameter of this hole is going to be 0.5. And I just have to dimension from the center point to the front of the train. This should be 0.875. Finish my sketch. Extrude. Cut. A distance of 1/4 of an inch, so 0.25. So 0.25. And I'm going to get this little plane out of the way by right-clicking on it and unclicking the visibility to it. Now, the last piece we have to do is just put some holes in the front here, and then we have to remember to fillet all the corners, okay? So let's not forget that either. So let's go in here and put a new sketch on our front. And we have some holes to put here. So the holes, we can just use circles, or we can use points and actually make them holes. Either way works. I'm going to grab the circles. And I know there's a circle there, and that circle is, they are a diameter of 0.125 or 1/8 of an inch. There's another one over here somewhere. That's 0.125. And there's one in the center, right? That lines up with this in the center. Just make sure it's not on that same line right there, or else you won't be able to get it off 0.125, all right? Because all we did was measure it from side to side. Let's take a look at these. Each one of these are 1 inch. Well, this one here is in the center, which I have. This other one looks like it is 0.375 away. So here, 0.375. Oops. Enter. And again, I'm just going to make sure this is even with that. All right, and I'll dimension this from here to here. 0.375. And this one, that top one, is 0.625 from the bottom. 0.625. 625. All right, and this one's already in the center, so I don't have to worry about where that one is side to side. And how far up are these? Let's see. That is 0.125, and they both move for us. There we go, because they're constrained together. All right, once we finish that up, all right, we can go in and extrude, cut, 1, 2, 3, and they go in 0.125, or they go in 1/8 of an inch. And there we go. All righty. Last step, almost forgot the last step again, huh? We want to fillet all the edges. So on the second page of your directions, the top there, it says round all edges to a radius of 0.1. So let's just pick an edge, 0.1, and you're going to go around and make sure all edges are 0.1, which is going to require you manipulating the view cube and making sure that all your edges are 0.1. And that means all of the edges. Again, if you have a mouse, this works a little bit easier because you can see a little better and manipulate these. And that's all edges that are not holes, remember. So any edges that's not a hole. So don't fillet the edges of a hole. Oops. And almost done. Just making sure I didn't forget any edges here. And I'll turn this because the back here, bam. And we're done. All right, let's spin this back around, and there is our mini train, all done and ready to go and filleted nicely. All righty, so there you go. If you've caught up with me, that means you're done with the body, and we'll come back next time and we'll take a look at that smokestack. All righty, hopefully that was helpful, and I'll see you next time.